Hello everyone, in this video we are discussing the ventricles of brain. Here you can see this is a coronal section. Coronal section means we are dividing the brain in the anterior and posterior part. Okay, so this is the coronal section and we are discussing ventricle of brain. First of all, you see this animation. In this you can see clearly the ventricles of brain. Okay. Now we are going to discuss in a diagrammatic way, then we will be discussing it in a animated way. So here, first you can see here the outline we are going to see first. These outline you can see, these are the outline of cerebral hemisphere. Okay, so these are the outline of cerebral hemisphere. Now, then comes the diencephalon. Okay, if you haven't watched my previous short, I have explained all the parts in the sagittal section, so it will be very clear in that. Now, these are the diencephalon. After this here, it is getting connected to the midbrain and then the brain stem with pons, medulla, and cerebellum is not here because it is in the posterior side. Here it is pons, medulla, and the spinal cord. This whole, I hope you got this one. Now in this there is, as you can see here, this is the cerebral hemisphere. So in cerebral hemisphere, which ventricle comes? There comes the lateral ventricle. There are two in number, one on each side. So lateral ventricle is coming in the cerebral hemisphere and the location will be telencephalon. Again, you should watch the previous shot. I have explained very clearly in that. Okay, so lateral ventricle is coming in the telencephalon. So this one you can see here, this is the lateral ventricle. Right, now next comes the third ventricle, which is coming in the diencephalon. This is diencephalon. So third ventricle is coming in the diencephalon, and in the pons and medulla part we have the fourth ventricle, that is the location will be rhombencephalon. Right, it will be in cerebellum also, but here it is not there because it is in the posterior part. Okay, here we are in the anterior coronal section. So fourth ventricle is coming in the pons, cerebellum and medulla, and the location will be known as rhombocephalon. Now, as you know, CSF is formed by choroid plexus. So most of the choroid plexus consisting is in the lateral ventricle. Now the lateral ventricle, the very important point here is that the lateral ventricle is actually getting connected to the third ventricle by a foramen, and that foramen is foramen of Monro. So foramen of Monro connects the lateral ventricle to third ventricle. Then again, third ventricle is getting connected to the fourth ventricle. Okay, it is connected by the aqueduct of Sylvius, and then the fourth ventricle is opening in the spinal cord, that is a central canal of spinal cord. Now I hope you understood, or I can draw it again. See, this is this cerebral hemisphere, right? I told you there will be two lateral ventricles. Okay, one matlab means one each side, so there will be lateral ventricle. Now this is getting connected to diencephalon. Now diencephalon is also having a ventricle, that is the third ventricle. So this one is the third ventricle here, and these are lateral ventricle. Now both of them are getting connected to each other by a foramen. Okay, so this foramen is the foramen of Monro. Right, so foramen of Monro is getting connected, connecting the lateral ventricle and third ventricle. Now what comes? Now comes the midbrain, and then comes the pons, then comes the medulla and the spinal cord. Here in the pons and medulla, we have our fourth ventricle. So this is the fourth ventricle. Right, now the fourth ventricle and the third ventricle, these both are connected to each other through the foramen, that is the, or through a aqueduct, that is the aqueduct of Sylvius, or it is also known as cerebral aqueduct. Okay, so both are the names. The third ventricle is connected to the fourth ventricle, and fourth ventricle is getting opened in the central canal of the spinal cord. Okay, so this was about the ventricles. Now one more thing is there. I told you about choroid plexus. Choroid plexus are mainly in the lateral ventricle. They are coming down to the third ventricle from the aqueduct of Sylvius. They are coming in the fourth ventricle. Now here's something very important happens, and that is that the fourth ventricle have three openings. So here on the lateral side you can see these two. On the lateral side we have foramen of Luschka. So what are the openings through which CSF is going out of the brain, and it is going out in the brain in the subarachnoid space, which we can talk some other time, and then it is going into the dural venous sinuses. Okay, so we are not going to talk about that right now. Okay, but we are just talking about the fourth ventricle. Foramen of Luschka is on the lateral side present on the fourth ventricle from which the CSF is coming out, and another one is on the medial side. On the medial edge we have the foramen of Magendie. So this is the foramen of Magendie here, and it is in the median. So we can remember very clearly from M we have Magendie, which means median, and with Luschka means it is on present on the lateral side. I hope you understood this. This was the maximum easiest way I could tell you about the ventricles. Now you can see the animation also after this, so you will be getting a clear concept where it is present, the ventricles are present. Thank you for watching.